of the design for the campground, because when we were looking at what Dinky Line had and did not have, one of the biggest complaints we had about Dinky Line was the lack of a group camp. Dinky Line Campground was very popular with Boy Scout troops of America because they love to come out on these long distance hikes, have these intermediate trails where they can stop one place, camp in another, and then continue on with their journey. The problem was Dinky Line Campground is 4 primitive backcountry sites that allow only 6 visitors per site. And so we were not able to adequately supply them with enough campsites or space for them to be able to stay and use our facilities on these journeys. But we have lots of scouts that love to come here. So when we were designing it, we said, okay, we need to have a group camp. All of our campgrounds need to have a group camp because it provides a space for these large scout troops or other large hiking groups to be able to come out and use these facilities. Then it came the discussion of size. How do we determine how big a group camp needs to be? Because if you look at all of our group camps throughout Savage Gulf, they are erratic in their size and their shape. They're all different dimensions. They all have different capacities. So we were like, okay, let's try to think of a good uniform number for these sizes. And I came up with a 100 by 100 foot campground for a group camp. That is a truly massive campsite, as you can tell from what's been cleared in this space. But I came to the conclusion that by having it be intentionally larger than what might be needed, that will provide those troops enough space for them to feel like they can set up and use the facility to their needs. And so that they're not accidentally expanding the campsite by setting up in a different spot that wasn't designated for them, or by only clustering to one spot because it's the only adequate space within the campsite. So by having it be intentionally large, this allowed us to have them plenty of space. The other aspect of this area was we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of trees for hammocks. Hammocks are a very popular form of camping right now. Lots of folks use them, and in particular, scout troops. Boy Scouts love hammocks. So we wanted to make sure we picked a spot that had clear, easy access to trees and good size hammocks. So when we were coming out and surveying the area, we located this spot right here. And we said, okay, this has a gentle slope to it, and there's plenty of space and opportunity within the spot. The main thing was, it did not look like this when we first started. It very much so looked like what is surrounding you, where we had lots of understory holly, lots of red maple, sassafras, small trees, scrub, briar. There was also about 12 inches of duff layer. Duff layer is organic material of leaf litter and pine needle that builds up on the top before it becomes soil. And that stuff will compact and decompose, and it's mushy and it's a pain to set up in. It's not adequate surface for camping. And so we had to come out here and start removing hundreds of trees, actual hundreds of trees. On one of the camp days when we came out to clear trees for this project, we cleared about 120 trees for this area. And those were lots of small hollies and pines and other trees where we had to cut them off, use Pulaski axes to cut the stumps out and remove them. We then went through and located any larger trees, such as these Virginia pines that are hanging around, and some of these sassafrasses and sourwoods that had bad leans or dead tree limbs or were likely to be damaged by storm. And we went through and removed them as well so that we could open up this facility space and give it adequate sunlight and to provide good spacing for the trees and hammocks. As we were doing that, one of the things we did notice is that by opening up the canopy, we had grass coming back into this area, especially briar. So if you are going to go about building yourself a nice big campground like this, especially in a pine forest where that pine litter really protects and insulates that soil, makes it hard for grass to really pop up through, be prepared to come back and mow multiple times afterwards, because you will be coming back and clearing that material, and that grass will shoot up from where that pine needle used to cover. And that will give you a big grassy area that has to be mowed. And so we designed it to be intentionally large, but to adequately supply space for scouts. One thing that is common in our campgrounds, though, is that the edges of them are hard to define because folks will set up in different spots and make it difficult to distinguish where the edge of the campsite is, because folks don't always want to set up on the hard packed surface because they can't get their stakes in the ground. It might be muddy, wet, runoff. Loads and loads of potential issues that they see. So they will set up in a new spot, accidentally expand the campground, and so on and so forth by disturbing the vegetation. So with the group camp, I wanted to try something new for our park, which was to define a perimeter of the campground and the campsite by setting posts at the corners and the midpoints of about 50 feet apart with blazes on them so that we could accurately define where the edge of the campsite was for our visitors that come out here and they're like, well, where do I set up? Okay, it's within the box. As long as you're set up within the box, you're good to go. That also helps for maintenance of the facility and the site as well, because our maintenance guys will be able to come out here and say, okay, we need to weed eat to this line, mow to this line. If there's a tree hanging out in it, we clear it to this line. It makes it easier and it defines it quicker for our visitors and for us. So that's where we're sitting out with the group camp. We also decided to change things up a little bit. We have one other facility in the park that has picnic tables, and that's going to be at the Hobbs Cabin actual facility. And something we really don't do a lot for our park because it's backcountry campsites. We keep them purposely primitive as a part of the appeal of our park. But these two picnic tables were built by Troop 8 out of Jasper as part of an Eagle Scout project. We'll be seeing the other half of that Eagle Scout project a little bit later. But they came forward and they asked if they could build picnic tables for the group camp, and we agreed to it. And I think they are a good addition for the group camp because it allows these large groups to have a communal space to sit down and use. And so I'm under the impression that I think the picnic tables will be a good design choice in the future for our facilities. The other aspect was metal fire rings. Most of our fire rings are stone structure where we go out and build them. Unfortunately, folks love to pick up the rocks and move them or accidentally scatter them. If people are throwing large logs and limbs into them, they will break up the fire ring. The fire ring will eventually get filled with soot and ash and be buried by mud, and they become hard to maintain at a certain time. The metal fire ring, I feel, will be more durable, will last better for our facilities, and has a certain appeal. It implies a maintenance and a upkeep that maybe you don't see with a fire ring that's degraded from falling apart from the rocks being scattered from visitor use. So that's where we sit here with the group camp. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay.